Recently, I've been on a really big single-player game kick, and I recently just stumbled across Ghost of Tsushima, and I just finished my first playthrough a couple days ago, and I wanted to give you guys a review on this game in case you haven't played it yet, because it's definitely worth the play, but there's a few things you want to keep in mind when you get into it. And this video is not going to have any spoilers involved with it. Obviously, there's a main storyline to the game, and we're going to be going over just the generalized plot of the entire game as a whole. So no spoilers in this video, so in case you haven't played it yet, there's nothing to worry about. But for those of you who don't know, Ghost of Tsushima is a single player game, and it takes place, of course, in Tsushima, and you play as a samurai Sakai Jin, and you basically have to take back your land that was invaded by Mongols. In the first 3 minutes of the game, it's very clear how the plot's set up for you, and it really just throws you right into the fray of everything, but it's a very action-packed and fighting-focused game. The storyline is very straightforward, and it's just very linear story progression, which I personally do like. It's a very easy to follow story, so there's no weird areas of the game where you don't really know what's going on. Everything's really nicely laid out for you. So in terms of the basic plot of the game, it's a really nicely set up plot. And then of course there's a bunch of subplots and other things you can do inside the world of Tsushima. But when you first get into the world, you're gonna notice one major thing, and that's gonna be the visual aspect of the game. I haven't really played many other games in the world of single player games that look as good as this one. Of course, like your staple Red Dead 2 is a really great looking one, and a few other games out there that are definitely known for their visual quality, and this one definitely matches up to that, especially when it takes place in a cool setting like Tsushima, the island that you're playing on. It's just a really, really nice visual experience that I had a lot of fun playing on. And that's gonna be one thing you notice immediately when you get into the game. It's not gonna take you long to realize how nice this game looks. And that's one of the main things that I really enjoyed about the game, was just the visual quality of the game. And especially with this being my first single player game that I played on my new OLED, it definitely helped out the visual experience of the game. And another thing that the game does that not many others follow is the minimal HUD system. Now, when you're playing, obviously, and you're in combat, you have some very basic HUD layouts. You have a few things for like your health, your focus points, and things like that. And when you're not in combat, that HUD just goes straight away. So it's really just you running around on your horse or just walking around and experiencing the atmosphere of the game. And I think that's a really cool thing that they did to make it a little more immersive in gameplay, and allows you to really take in the scenery of the game. Now, in the early stages of the game, aside from, of course, the visual quality that I was coming to appreciate, it was definitely the combat system. Now, I'm big on Elden Ring and other games like that, and this game takes that same kind of formula and just alters it a little bit, makes it a little more easier for you to actually play the game. Now, I played on like the harder difficulty, which made it a little more challenging, but just kind of going around playing as like a ninja slash samurai, it was definitely a really cool dynamic. And the combat system as a whole is really awesome. I love the fact that you're able to parry attacks, and you also have a bunch of other stances to kind of tackle certain foes that you come across in the game. So it's definitely a very engaging combat system, and I think that's definitely one of the highlights of the game. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the main storyline is one of the highlights of the game, and I really, really enjoyed the main story. Obviously, I'm not going to give any spoilers out on what the actual story entails, but it basically follows you through every single chapter, of course, and that's definitely the bread and butter of the game in my opinion, and it's just a really engaging story. There are some points that aren't as engaging in the main storyline as it's building up to the large endings of each individual act, as there's 3 in the game. And despite its simplicity and not too many main story missions, it's definitely a nicely paced game, and they definitely nailed it in terms of story pacing. Future Joni here, but sorry for cutting in, but I realized as I'm editing this video that I completely forgot one major thing that I really, really loved about the game, and that's of course the fact that you can choose between English dub and Japanese dub. So when you first start the game, before we even get to your first cutscene, they basically give you the ability to choose if you want to hear the entire story in English with English voice actors, with of course subtitles on as well, or you can do it in Japanese, where you can have of course a full Japanese cast with actually amazing voice actors. And I obviously chose the Japanese dub option with the English subtitles. I'm a big anime fan myself, so I felt like I got a really cool immersive experience, of course, with it being, taking place with samurais and in Japan and stuff. It definitely gave it a really cool experience to me, and I think that definitely added to the level of enjoyment in the game. So that's one major thing that I've never seen any other game do, and I gotta give it props for doing it. Now, as you're exploring Tsushima, obviously you're gonna be going through the main storyline of the game, but there's definitely a push for side quest lines, and that's gonna be my first main kind of con with the game. And in no way or shape is it me complaining about there being content in a game, but I'll be just completely honest, the side quest lines in Ghost of Tsushima are just kind of boring in my opinion, and that's gonna be one of the downsides to the game that I personally had with it. Now, with your storylines, obviously you have the main one, which kind of takes you through Jin's journey, but there are side storylines with side characters, so you have supporting characters in the game, and it kind of takes you through their story a little bit, and it basically splits their stories up in 9-part quests, and that's gonna be my main issue with the story. is just the fact that you have 9 parts for each individual character. And with all the additional side quests for these characters and then just random pop-up events that happen throughout the world that naturally spawn, there's about 50 side quests involved in the game. And given the amount of quest lines that they have in this game, it's just not that engaging and not that exciting. A few of them are really just very cut and dry, track someone down through footprints or something and then just kill them, and then that's pretty much it. And the game doesn't really reward you that much for doing these side quests either. They may give you like a small amount of XP basically, and then like 1 or 2 items that are just materials and all. So they didn't do the best job in giving you a rewarding feeling for playing those side quests. And someone like me, I really enjoy going through an entire game and basically 100%ing it as much as I possibly can. And with Tsushima, I was really starting to get bored by going through and tackling each individual area I had to liberate, doing all the side quests and stuff like that, because I would literally spend like 4 or 5 hours just doing side things and not even touching the main story some days. And it definitely got a little boring in terms of repetition and just uninteresting quest lines with those side characters. So if I had to give this game one piece of advice, although I'm not complaining about the amount of content they give you, I wish they made it a little more engaging, or they maybe consolidated it a little bit to where it was a little easier to play and digest and kind of get out of the way in terms of getting back to the main story, because the main story is a really, really good plot and just a really well-paced storyline, but the side quests feel like they drag on pretty much through every single chapter, and it kind of almost made me stop playing the game because I really didn't want to skip out on those things, but I just ended up getting to a point where I just kind of stopped doing those side quests and then just mainly focus on the main story because I found it a lot more enjoyable that way. So if you have played this game before or you are playing it, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below, because I don't know if it's just me or if it's just the way that I was playing, but to me, I just didn't really find those side quests that interesting. Aside from that one complaint though, I honestly don't think there's many other complaints I have with the game. Obviously, with it being a minimalistic HUD, there was no map or mini map on the actual screen when the HUD was open. And I definitely respect that they did that as a design choice to maybe make it a little more immersive. And they use a wind system to where whenever you're actually riding around on your horse and you pinpoint a location on a map, it uses the wind to actually guide you into the direction. So it gives you a general idea as to where you're supposed to be going. And sometimes I wouldn't be able to get the wind to blow the exact way that I wanted it to. So sometimes it would be kind of a thing where I'd have to open the map up a lot and kind of go into the start menu and exactly figure out where I wanted to be. So that's definitely one thing that I wish they actually added, was a smaller map that you could toggle on and off to either fully immerse yourself in the game or maybe just throw it on there to where you can actually see where you're going sometimes when you're trying to navigate the world. But I get why they did it and I respect it, but I just wish that it maybe was there as an option. So some people that need a map to look around and stuff don't have to go to the start menu and go into it. Again, small nitpick, but aside from that, I mean, the game's great. You have a lot of customization. You have a lot of really cool little side things you can do in the game, like going to and finding like bamboo strikes to increase resolve. You can go around and increase maximum health with a bunch of hot springs on the map. And there's just a bunch of other small things inside the game and open world that you can kind of explore and find to really complete your map and kind of max out your character on your own. So there's a lot of small things that they did really, really well in this game, and there's definitely a lot of attention to detail in this game as well. So that's one thing that I really did not take for granted in the game, and I think they really did a great job. And just in terms of the world development, everything looked great. There was no weird areas or anything like that, and everything flowed really well together. So I got to give this studio props for creating such a nice looking game and well-performing game too. I really had a fun time playing it. And to me, after around late Act 2 is whenever the game started getting really good. The first act and the first part of Act 2 were definitely good in terms of like the storyline and everything, like I mentioned earlier, but I will say it got really, really good after I'd say middle of Act 2, and it started really picking up the pace in the storyline. So if you are playing or you plan on playing and you're kind of losing steam into Act 2 like I did, definitely just hold out and maybe focus less on the side stuff and more on the main storyline, because that's where the game really shines and it really took off for me and really made it a fun game that I really, really enjoyed. But that's pretty much gonna wrap up my review on Ghost of Tsushima. I would definitely play this game again, and I definitely recommend you pick it up. I actually picked it up on sale for around like 45 bucks, and for that price, absolutely worth it. I 100% recommend you pick it up. Even at $60 price, I know paying for games nowadays kind of sucks, and it's definitely not like always the norm, but for single player AAA games like this one, where they really put in a lot of work and effort and you're just experiencing the whole world as it is, I think it's 100% worth it, and I would definitely even buy it at 60 bucks. So if you haven't played it yet, I definitely recommend it. If you have played it, I want to hear what you guys think about this game in the comments down below. But thanks for watching the video all did, guys, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.